In September 2024, Yella of Growing Bonsai and myself went down and visited Peter Chan of Herons, and whilst we were there, you'll know, we got some fruit from some Siberian crab apple and also some dwarf pomegranate. And I said at the time, for the first time ever, I was actually going to try and go from fruit to bonsai. Well, guess what? It's 6 months later, and there's the results. But is it good or is it bad? You know I always tell you the truth here in the Bonsai Retreat. But not only will you get to see what happened with the crab apple and the pomegranate, but also in there, even I managed to scrabble a couple of seeds from my large bonsai and I planted them. I've got 2 in there, so we'll have a look at those too. Anyway, loads of stuff to do with seeds, but can I actually ever make bonsai from it in my lifetime? Well, here's the start. Let's watch and find out. Hi, it's Xavier. Welcome to my Bonsai Retreat, and guess what? It's September, well, near the end of September 2024. Hopefully you're seeing this in 2025, and hopefully there's going to be something very green replacing this very shortly. Many of you will know, if you watched my series of collaboration videos with Yella, link for those will be in the description, then you'll know that while our visit to Herons, Peter Chan was kind enough to let us have some Siberian crab apple and also some dwarf pomegranate seed pods. And in fact, why not scoot back to September 2024 and have a look and see just how we collected these 2.
So what are these?
Siberian crab. You see how small the fruit are?
Do you think these would grow from seed?
Very easy from seed.
And you say I'm never too old to start, right?
No, not at all.
So can I steal some from you?
Yeah, take what you want.
How would I go about growing these from seed then?
If you sow it straight away, cut it open, take the seeds out and put it in compost.
Yeah.
And by March, I guarantee you, it'll be 100% success.
100%? Oh, so I'm taking way too many now.
And my son, when he was 10 years old, I took him to Kew Gardens. And I told him that for every seed of fruit you pick from the ground, I'll give you 1 penny. He picked so much, I think I had to pay him £5 or £10. It nearly bankrupted me. I was regretting it, but every seed came up. And the number of plants I sold for £1 each back in 1980-81, I must have got hundreds of pounds from it.
I think you could find me a pomegranate then that I can plant up, because I know you're an expert on seeds and that's how you're going to start your bonsai life.
Yeah, exactly. So I give you one. So we'll make a nice cut for you. And you enjoy it and make new wonderful plants out of it.
Yeah, thank you. Now say, the red ones are the Siberian crab apple and the clear ones are the pips from the pomegranates. And looking online, what I was required to do is basically 24 hours, well, these have been there for probably about 15 hours, soaking in water just to get all the pithy stuff off, and you want to clean these out and then dry them off. So I'm going to do that to both those, and then we're going to come back because we have to deal with them differently. So if we look at the first one, which is the dwarf pomegranate, basically the best time to squash them and get them out of the pomegranate is actually somewhere near in November or indeed the spring. But this is when we've got the fruit, and from the best of my research, you need to get the pips sorted out within about 5 days. I couldn't see anything that suggested they could store any longer. So I've got a seed tray or very, very shallow bonsai pot with just a standard common potting mix in there. I've left about 1 centimetre from the top. What I have to do is basically drain. All these have been soaking. They all look viable. I think the key is with seeds is if they float, they're not viable. They should be hard and not soft in any way. Well, if they're hard, they won't be soft, will they? I've got a little bit of paper towel, which is what I'm going to use to dry them off and help get the rest of that pithy husk off. I like the word pithy. That's another word for the Bonsai Retreat, pithy. Anyone want to put some meanings for it? Because I used to see some acting that was pretty pithy. I'm just going to sprinkle got loads here, so we'll just see what happens. There's no particular orientation, so then all I have to do is sprinkle over about a centimetre of soil over the top, and these should sprout within the next sort of 4 to 5 weeks. They'll be left on the kitchen windowsill where it stays warm because they are pomegranate, so they're not cold hardy, that's for sure. Ideally this should be done in spring or earlier in the year, I think, but hey, you've got to deal with things as you get them. So I will lightly water that. Let's have a look at the Siberian crab apple. Now these are actually really quite small red pips. The Siberian crab apple are substantially different in their treatment. Same thing, you've got to get all the pulp and pith off. I think it's called taking the pith. And if you're in the UK, you know exactly what I just... It's really weak, poor joke, but then that's the story of my life anyway. So get rid of all that sort of stuff, and again separate the seeds, and then these, once they're all cleaned and peeled off, what you do is you make up a damp sort of ball of your potting mix, and make sure your seeds are contained within it. Put it in a plastic bag inside, just like loosely tied, and then leave it in the vegetable drawer of your fridge. In here, I've dropped this 3 times now, losing the crab apple seeds. I've managed to separate some seeds. Apparently you just sprinkle them into the dirt, so to speak. Truthfully, for this experiment to be a success, I just want one. One will do me nicely. So you're supposed to squeeze it in, and this I suppose it's like picking up a dog poo. And I think the whole idea is that by then putting it in this mash, you're replicating it lying in the ground, I suppose. And apparently you're supposed to check it minimum in about 10 weeks time to see if anything's actually sprouting through there. But otherwise it just sits in there and it's baggy. So that's the crab apple. Now luckily I think we're going to zap a minimum of 10 weeks, but certainly to either a decision whether nothing's happening or we've got little sprouts. So should we go and have a look now, shall we? Meanwhile, make sure you've had a really nice Christmas and New Year. So it's now the 22nd of February, and I'm going to go and have a look and see what these Siberian crab apple, which have been overwintering beside the milk and the strawberry yogurt. So we're going to have a look and see, did it make any difference whatsoever? So let's get these out, and we're going to put them in some soil, I think. That's the juice company, that's what we drink to keep ourselves fit and healthy. Oh look, sour cream and chibi dip. That's what I have with my limp celery to keep me fit. Thankfully, they never did get used for any cake mixers or anything like that. But next stage, really you want to put it into basically just a potting compost and wait for them to germinate. So the soil I've got is just basically a regular potting mix, and I've just put in a bit of common grit there just to allow for water to drain through a little bit easier. So just one of those plastic training pots. Really, we need to have a look and see what these look like. I read somewhere that by this stage they may even already have shoots coming out. Why do I not feel that's going to be the case for me? Anyway, let's have a look. And if you haven't guessed, I've got the hat on, not because it's boiling hot, but because the sun is just there and comes straight across my face and lights me up like an angel. I don't think you're ready for that. I know I'm not. So, let's see what we discover. They're in these little, well, poo balls, and truthfully I can't even remember where the seeds are in there. I can see 1 or 2. Certainly there's no signs of early germination. I think the answer is simply we've got the weather improving. Let's get them planted up into some soil there, separate them out maybe, and then just leave them again and see what happens in another month, 2 months maybe. I don't really want to just put them straight in like this. I don't know what their rotation is, or I don't know. I can't remember what they look like. I wonder whether I should just put them straight into there. I think that's the best thing to do. Certainly there's nothing that's germinated. There's still the hard packed brown. Don't know if you can see just there. So yeah, there's no sign of movement from them. And what I'll do, slightly spread a bit of soil over the top. And water them in. Thankfully for yourselves, you'll probably only have to wait a few more seconds to see how it's looking in 6 weeks' time, or when there is indeed some sort of shoots coming through. So fingers crossed, and with the magic of technology, let's wind ourselves on. Well, I thought I'd come out and check. I think it's the 18th and 19th of March now. I should know these things better, to be honest. But there's the Siberian crab apple. Should we have a look and see if there's any surprising results? Yes, just here. There's a lovely little green shoot that's coming up. No sign of anything else around there. There's probably about 7 or 8, I think, in there. But do you know what? One is better than none. And it was free. So, we're now the 28th of April. And, well, here they are. And I've got to say, I'm absolutely over the moon. There's 5 very, very healthy dwarf pomegranates. And I am going to plant them up in individual pots. But I suppose that also begs the question, how are the Siberian crab apple doing? Should we go and have a look? Well, we've certainly got well, I'd say 3 sprouts. Unfortunately, of the sprouts stroke shoots, 2 of them are of one variety of something, and another one is obviously a completely different variety, which begs the question, we've either got a rogue seed in there, or indeed we might actually have a rogue weed. They've got one that's slightly taller with a red shoot that has got serrated edge leaves, and then 2 much smaller non-serrated edged leaves, which I believe might actually be the Siberian crab apple. And the only reason I say that is because there were probably about 6 or 7 in there, and we've got 2 of the same thing. So I'm hedging my bets on those, but please, down in the comments, you let me know what you think the serrated edge one might be. Indeed, have I got it the wrong way round? So whether it be the dwarf pomegranate or indeed the Siberian crab apple, I do have to decide what happens next. Now, clearly, the crab apples, they're a lot smaller. They're already in quite a deep plastic container. The soil is a good free draining mix, and truthfully, I think they'll be absolutely fine in there. So I'm not going to do anything more with those apart from water them and watch them grow. So we'll put those to one side, but clearly the dwarf pomegranate are basically in a loam-based compost. So they're now big enough that I'm going to pot them up. And, well, as I say, this is the first time really for me going from fruit to seed to hopefully bonsai. So you and I are learning the process at the same time. Or in fact, many of you are probably saying, Xav, don't do what you're about to do. But I'm going to, because I can't hear you. But first of all, you probably want to know what soil I'm going to use. Well, it's seedlings, and I recognise that seedlings do not want to be drying out really quickly, and clearly in a non-organic free draining mix, which I normally use for bonsai, they'll probably dry out the minute I put the water in there. So what I have actually done is I've put together a fine grained 1 to 2 millimetre pumice and zeolite, and then I've also mixed just a standard potting mix which you get from your local garden centre, and I've mixed in the ratio of 1 to 1 to 1, which is the same as 3 to 3 to 3, or indeed 5 to 5 to 5. But yeah, so with that, I'm hoping that I'm going to have a good free draining mix, but enough organics that actually when you hold it together, it's going to retain some of the moisture. In terms of the pots, I'm using these, which I think they're don't know whether you measure it the diameter, but I think there's something like 9 centimetre pots, which is what, 3 inches, I don't know. And they've got the usual issue with the holes in the bottom. So what do? I've cut a little bit of green mesh, which is based on the base, and that pops in the bottom. Then all I need to do is put about half of a mix into there. Got 5 pots already ready behind me. What I really need to do now is have a look and see exactly what these pomegranate roots look like. Because do you know what? I've got absolutely no idea. So first things first, let's loosen this off and see exactly what sort of network of roots we've got. As I say, for me, this is a first. You know, this is exciting for me. For those of you who've done seedlings lots of times, I'm sure this is very, very humdrum. But let's have a look. The temptation is to pull them. Okay, gosh. Well, there's roots there. I think the problem I've got is potentially the roots have already gone through the bottom of the... Right, I've got a mesh in there. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is next time if you ever do seeds, don't put a mesh in the bottom. Because the seeds have obviously gone into the mesh. I mean, these are nice and strong. But you can see here, I've actually got the roots that have been growing through there. Got a big root here. Okay. So there we go, there's one. Now I've got a little thing of water. So I'm going to keep those in. Just carefully pull them out. And we'll have a little look at the roots in a minute. And you can see, I can see clearly there's a little spread of roots around it, but all of them have what's clearly a tap root there as well. So there's the 5, and you can see on the base of the mesh I've got quite a big root system. Don't do this. That's definitely a no-no, clearly. Obviously what I am very aware of is that these delicate seedlings potentially need all of that root system. Now, having identified the tap roots on these, I've definitely got a fine set of roots further up, but I don't want this big one. So with a sharp pair of shears, I'm going to cut those. Now again, I've not done this before. I don't know if that's going to create more problems or not. Got this great big tap root here and some more roots either side. I'm just going to shorten it, and then with this one got lots of fine roots in there, so again I'm just going to shorten. Well, I think actually with this one that's a big tap root, but probably you'll tell me I could cut right up here and cut it right off. And in fact, let's just shorten that, because what we want to do is encourage a finer, closer root work in here. So maybe the answer is to actually remove it. So we'll do it on that one and see what happens. This one's got multiple branches on it. And then again, a little bit more dirt. All I'm going to do is just shorten those ones. Which really then just leaves me this little one to do. And again, got lots of fine filament roots there, plus what is clearly the tap root. I'm going to cut that one short there. And now we should have 5 pomegranates ready to plant up. I mean, I could probably cut the center one or one of the side ones to encourage early back budding ramification, but you know what, I've never done this before, so I'm not going to press my luck. So we've got this, so I am going to just spread the roots slightly as best I can, so we try and at least get some sort of root development. Maybe there's 2 main roots. I'll put them out sideways. Now, I'm very aware that I'm not sure how this is going to stand up on its own, to be honest. And there's the soil. Be nice to be able to get some movement in. I wonder how I know exactly how we can get some movement in. I've now seen how easy it is to work with the roots. It'd be quite nice to be able to put some gentle movement in some of these. So we'll leave that one as it is. I'll just go and water it, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with a couple of the others. Now clearly it's he's gone all limp. The obvious solution right now, get some wire. Just got some 1 to 2 millimeter wire. Then poke that down, and very, very carefully create what I would call a cage for it. What I don't want to do is inadvertently break anything on it. So part of me is thinking there might be a better solution. So that's kept it upright. Do you know what? As soon as it's established and the roots have gone with the water, that will start standing erect, so to speak. It will be excited by the sun. So what about if I took a longer piece of wire, maybe I could take up the side of the pot, and then, yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll get that a bit higher up. Then what we'll do, again, spread the roots, and very, very carefully wrap the wire around our lovely little pomegranate shoot. Spread some of those roots about. There we go. I can hear, do you know what? I can hear the birds flapping. You know what that means? They've seen me doing this and know there are potentially worms on for lunch. And obviously it's not only giving that that support for this, it's also allowing me to just put just a gentle bit of movement in the trunk right now, and I can adjust that further once it's established in this pot. It also means I've secured it to the side there, so if we get wind or whatever, it should stay in place. I've got 2 more to do, and equally I could probably just get the length of wire, wrap it around the wire now, and then thread it down the bottom. It's all about how you secure stuff. So there we go. There's 5 dwarf pomegranates. I've taken them from the actual fruit themselves. You've seen me take all the gunk off. I've rinsed them into some water. With the pomegranates, they went straight into some soil, and then here we are 6 months later, and probably out of a dozen seeds, maybe a few more that I managed to take, I've got 5 very, very healthy looking seedlings, just 6 months old. I'll follow these with delight. Now the reality is I don't intend to do anything more with them until we look at them again next year. So ideal time for you to say to me, if you've got experience with pomegranate seedlings at this sort of age, 1, have I done the right thing? Was the wire a good idea? And is there anything different that you would look to me doing in the sort of year 1 to year 2 that maybe I can pass on to other people? Because clearly at some point I'm going to need to start thinking about the early development stages of a seedling to a pre-bonsai sapling. I'm over the moon with those. Obviously we'll wait and see what happens with the Siberian crab apple. I would imagine that I'm going to be doing the same process with them, but next year in 2026 when we do our updates on these. So I think that's a big, big thumbs up for the start of my Heron's Fruit to Bonsai series. It really goes just one more thing. Should we have a little look at my my little larch seedlings, which again I took as little bonsai, well they're not bonsai seeds, as little seeds from the so in terms of my immediate care for these now, what I don't want to do is bake them in the sun, which we're going to have all week. They are actually quite drought tolerant. In other words, they don't need loads and loads of water apparently. That's what I've read. Again, let me know in the comments. I'd be very interested. I'm going to be putting these in a shady spot that probably gets the first hour, hour and a half of the early morning sun. So while I put them away, we need to say, obviously Tony's seedlings, they're a couple of years further on. Certainly the Scots pine will start getting candles. He's got some wire on those as well. I need to have a look at those. They're not going to form part of these series. Probably you're going to get updates on Tony's seedlings as part of Tony's bonsai. These will be a slow project too. But there is something else we can deal with, and that's have a look and see just how my larch seedlings have got on, because these should be 18 months old now, I'd imagine. They're looking a little bit ropey, but we'll come in close and I'll show you. Because again, they're my babies too, and I need to treat them exactly the same way as that. Although they do look to be in quite good soil, actually. I wonder. So, having looked at these, one, I realised that there's only 2 of them in there, and they're not looking too bad. They're looking quite healthy. Got some weeds in here I can remove. I don't really want weeds competing, but I've actually got them already in pretty decent soil, and I don't really see the point in moving these on. If they were in that same sort of mix that the pomegranates were in, I probably would do it. But I'm also the firm view of why muck about with something if it's perfectly good as it is. That can continue to develop. I really want to see these. I'm going to let these go for another year alongside the pomegranate, and we'll revisit them in 2026 spring, I'd imagine. So from Xavier, I'm really over the moon and ecstatic with how we've got on with these seeds, especially because I've taken them from the actual base product, the fruit, and I've never done it before, and it's a success for me. So if you've never tried seedlings and you've got more than 3 or 4 years left in your lifetime, sounds pretty grim, doesn't it? Then give it a go, even if all you get to is the stage where you get the saplings. Still feels good, feels like you've created something, and I'm hopeful that with a lot of nurturing, care and love, and a bit of fertiliser too, and just a weeny bit of luck, we might actually see these dwarf pomegranates turn into at least pre-bonsai stage before I hang up my bonsai shears. And truthfully, my kids do keep telling me I've probably got a few more years left in me. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. I haven't got anything else about seeds, so really the only other thing I could look at directing you to is my success with Trident maple cuttings, especially when I beat Yella in a little competition a year or 2 ago. Apart from that, happy bonsai and God bless. Enjoy your seeds. Cheers.